Good afternoon and welcome to Wallace Wade Stadium here on the campus of Duke University. It is the Pony Up pregame show presented by Origin Bank. We are getting you ready for the SMU Mustangs and the Duke Blue Devils with a 7 o'clock kick tonight here from Durham, North Carolina. We will have about 40 minutes or so with you here on our Facebook show. Thanks everybody who joins us here on the SMU Mustangs Facebook page each week. Be sure you join us on the radio broadcast coming up later this evening. We're going to be on 570 KLIF for the radio broadcast. Also on the SMU app, Sirius XM channel 194. 6:30 will be the kickoff time for the pregame show, and 7 o'clock for the game between SMU and Duke. And before we get going too far, introduce the next man up here, and that'll be Scott Garner, who joins me over here across the booth here at Wallace Wade Stadium as we get ready for SMU and Duke. First, though, we look back a little bit at last week. SMU going on the road and winning again 40-10 at Stanford. 8th straight road win. That's tied for the longest active streak in the nation in wins on the road.
It is, and when you can go on the road and dominate the line of scrimmage like SMU did and like SMU has on the road this year, you're going to win a lot of games. And this is an SMU team that limited a Stanford team to less than 100 yards of rushing, 33 officially, but really it was about 93 when you take into consideration the sacks. But, yeah, how about an 87-yard touchdown to Moochie Dixon to start the game? That's 4 straight games now where the Mustangs have begun, not only quickly, but, man, it was lightning quick last game.
Yeah, it was about as quick as you could come with that 87-yarder to Moochie Dixon from Kevin Jennings. He had 3 first-quarter touchdown passes, wound up 17 of 27, 322 yards, 3 touchdowns to 1 interception. I don't know, maybe they took their foot off the gas a little bit after the big outburst to start at 21-0 in the first quarter. But still, you walk away with a 30-point win on the road. There's nothing to complain about.
No doubt. And there are a couple of things that you kind of point at that really stick out. Number one, the 6 sacks, the 11 tackles for loss. Really impressive. SMU, very consistent, solid, rushing the passer, rushing well as a unit. It's one thing to have great guys that are down there that are very athletic, but it's another to be able to do it as a unit, and that's what SMU's been doing such a good job of. Gap control, containing while rushing, rarely giving up leverage, staying outside at your defensive end position. Even the tackles, I thought Harrison Hunt did a good job a couple of times, too, during very critical pass rushes, but doing a really good job in zone pass coverage, too, on the back end. I thought that was crucial, too. Didn't get spread out. Kind of reminded you of the second half against Florida State when SMU really dominated that fourth quarter. A lot going right now for SMU.
A lot goes right when you come out of a bye week and jump out like that. You know, in 13 minutes, you score 21 points. You mentioned the defensive effort against the run, but it was a total defensive effort. 206 total yards for Stanford. Yep. They only averaged 2.9 yards per play in that game. And, you know, they wound up totally changing their game plan, too. They went away from their dual-threat quarterback to their freshman passing quarterback really early in that game, and he was under fire and under siege an awful lot.
He was. I thought the freshman did actually a pretty good job throwing the football as the game progressed, but you're right. When they made that quarterback switch, it took the element, that surprise element, running the speed option that they've been so good at the last couple of games, took it completely away from them.
SMU improving with that win to 6-1 on the year. 3-0 in the conference, tied with Miami and Pitt now for second in the ACC at 3-0. Pitt winning already this week on Thursday night, and I think opening our eyes a little bit with what we saw from them since they come to Dallas next week.
Not just winning, but how they did it. You know, Syracuse, I think they got a really good quarterback, one of the best I've seen this year, but he can be erratic and showed it. Pitt forcing 5 interceptions. 5.
And 3 for touchdowns, too.
Yeah.
But let's focus here on our Mustangs here. The win last week, and you actually lose a spot in the AP poll. Is that right? The week before, SMU was off and gained 3 spots in the AP poll. How's this work?
I have no idea.
I don't understand where the votes come from. Very confusing on that front. Not everything perfect, though, coming out of last week. Things that you got to clean up for sure. Roderick Daniels Jr. has to clean up punt returns. He muffed one. He fumbled another one. He'd had one a few weeks ago, too, where he had one game where he had a couple of interesting receptions of punts. So, obviously, that you got to clean up. And then you lost your leading receiver. R.J. Maryland leading you in all receiving categories, and in the second half suffers a knee injury that has him out for the year.
So disappointing. You know, he had the 2 catches for 55 yards, had the touchdown against Stanford. Linebackers kind of took themselves out of the play on one of those plays, but he has been so very, very good, Rich. I've been really impressed with just RJ's ability not only to run after the catch, which he's made a name for himself doing that, but his blocking ability. Both tight ends, and we're going to need Hibner tonight to really step up in that category. But both tight ends have done such a good job in the ground game, which is why SMU right now coming in fourth in the country here in a couple of 28th right now in rushing at 200 yards per game. That's third in the ACC, but a lot of that has to do with wide receivers doing a great job and our tight ends. And to lose RJ, that's a tough blow, Rich.
Running back spot was a little off last week, too, because Brashard Smith, we learned right before kickoff, had violated team rules and was benched for the first half of that game. But L.J. Johnson, I thought, had a great game. 9 carries, 45 yards. He scored twice. And then Brashard came in the second half and ran for 67 yards on just 8 carries.
Both of those guys, really fun to watch. They can be electric. Sometimes you watch Brashard. He wasn't quite finishing off runs like we had seen him in games previously. But, when you're dinged up at this point in the season, you're not going to do that. As you made mention, you and I kind of talked about it earlier. Hey, he came in and, you're up. You were up huge at that
31-10, I think, when he came in. Yeah.
So that makes a difference.
Yeah, it does make a difference. This week, we're here in Durham, North Carolina, only the third all-time meeting between SMU and Duke. The Blue Devils come in. They're receiving votes in both polls, 6-1 on the year, 2-1 in the conference. Frankly, they're trying to stay alive in the race for the conference championship game. You really can't afford a second loss in the league if you're going to do that.
No, and last year, this Duke team 8-5, 4-4 in the ACC. They beat Troy in the Birmingham Bowl. This is a good Duke team. They're solid defensively. They struggled some offensively, a little more than 300 yards per game, but they've got talent. Their quarterback, probably the biggest arm we've seen this year.
Yeah, Malik Murphy, the Texas transfer, now here as the starting quarterback. Not a run threat at all, but definitely does have a big arm and just big in general, too. One of the biggest quarterbacks we will probably see for sure. They're undefeated at home. They won last week here at home against Florida State 23-16, and one of the things they did in that game, Scott, was kind of been their recipe for success was turn you over. They had a couple of quick turnovers early. As a matter of fact, at one point, Brock Glenn, the Florida State quarterback, turned it over on 3 consecutive plays, and they scored 17 points off that.
Big strength of theirs is the second level. Their linebacking core very solid. We've seen that consistently this year with those guys. They do like to play zone on the back end, so SMU's got to watch that. Florida State too. They run back-to-back screens to begin the ballgame. I thought that was very telling. It tells you how sometimes Duke can get overly aggressive defensively, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because as a coach, it's a lot easier to put a fire out than it is to start it, as most coaches know, but they can get a little overly aggressive. Their line likes to slant. They'll bring a backer off the backside. This Florida State team, they convert a fake punt in the first half against Duke. I thought that was interesting, but the INT, the forced fumbles that we saw in back-to-back possessions tells you where the strength of this Duke team is.
They lead the nation in tackles for loss per game, almost 10 per game. They are near the tops in the ACC in sacks with 24 on the year, and they do it from multiple spots. Their linebackers all are good. Their DNs really can get after it up front,
and
too.
They do a good job on third down. In fact, they're they're top 10. They're 7th in the country with teams only converting about 27% of third downs against them. But they're very sound. They run to the football. Again, that is their strength.
And so it comes up with a 7 o'clock kickoff here tonight from Wallace Wade Stadium, SMU and Duke. And again, our radio broadcast starts at 6:30 over on 570 KLIF. And on the pregame show, I'll talk to Mustang safety Isaiah Wachovia as well as head coach Rhett Lashley. We told you some about last week's win for SMU, 40-10 at Stanford. Let's look back at some of the highlights from that big win.
SMU, I'm fascinated by them because SMU has gone from, let's hope they have a good first year in the ACC to legitimately, can they make the ACC championship game?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you start looking at their actual resume, whole picture, you never would have thought coming in that they would be 2-0 in ACC play with Florida State and Louisville as their first 2 games.
Woo! Man, opportunity number 7, man. None of them were promised. Opportunity number 7, let's make the most of it. For the last 2 weeks, we've been getting patted on the back. Pat on the back ain't too far from a slap on. Okay? It's all about us. It's all about us. Let's be mentally tough enough to handle the praise. But understand, we still got to play to our standard. Let's get after these guys.
Let's make sure we set the tone. Let's chase our standard. Let's make sure there's no doubt who the most physical team is. Let's make sure there's no doubt who responds over and over and over again. And when the opportunity presents itself, let's finish. All right? Set the tone from the first kick and do not let up.
Stanford at 2-4, trying to snap a 3-game losing skid. SMU trying to win their 4th straight. Roderick Daniels is the running back here. And the play fake from Jennings and a quick shot on the slant. And this is Moochie Dixon. And Moochie Dixon on the first snap of the game scores. 87 yards on the slant from Kevin Jennings. From a rookie class that gets more and more valuable to the rest of the season. Here's a toss coming near side and Ford taken out again. Here's Daniels from the pocket, going to take the deep shot downfield, and it is broken up and incomplete in the first half. Here goes L.J. Johnson, splits the middle of the Stanford defense out to the 40 for the Mustangs. Right now, here's Jennings going to launch it downfield, looking for Smith. It's caught. Touchdown SMU and Keyshawn Smith. Who do they target? And in a half dozen plays, Jennings has thrown for his 2nd score of the night.
And they are really spreading the ball around. Keyshawn Smith, Jordan Hudson. Moochie Dixon's got the touchdown on the first play of the game. And we haven't even seen R.J. Maryland yet.
There goes Davis on 2nd down. And boy, got trapped again. That was Moses. Here's Jennings, another little play fake. Now just going to lob it ahead. There's R.J. Maryland, Tom, making the catch, stretching out the play, and a first down coming for the Mustangs. So the Mustangs, bunch look to the top. Jennings with pressure coming. Sinclair ran right by him, and here goes Jennings. Now going to fire wide open. Maryland will back into the end zone for the touchdown. Best play of the night offensively. Here's another one, and Mosley can't hang on. Oh, and he got deflected and picked on the backside. Deuce Harmon has it, escaping the pocket to his left. Now going to spin and gun it. Caught. Middle of the field. Coming back to the near side, L.J. Johnson, and an SMU first down. The 24th straight game. And this is L.J. Johnson for the touchdown. This is Ford on the first carry. A handoff from Brown.
Really, at the end of the day, that's what it came down to.
Here comes Brown, and threw it just beyond the reach of Roush, incomplete. The ball on the way to Ione Manor got broken up and almost picked. So here's the snap. Cardinal only rushed 3. Jennings shoots it down the field, and that is caught. Bailey falling out of bounds with 6 seconds left. And here's Colin Rogers, who hit from 55 in Louisville 2 weeks ago. This is 51, and it is good. And now all of a sudden, SMU's taking a locker room lead of 31-7.
Hey, D, y'all can all hear music coming in. The main thing I told him is we have to start with the intensity like we did the game. Right here. Give them no hope. Take all hope in the 3rd quarter from them. So we have to take all the hope in the 3rd quarter and go finish the game. You guys.
Hey, finish on the set. Set. Finish. Come on, man. Come on.
Yep. Here's a play fake. Brown going to loop it down the field, and that is picked. Pulled out of the secondary, Wacobia. So here is Brown. Now trying to get out of trouble, and going to be sacked, and that's a safety. Cale Sanders, and here goes Broussard. No, that's Roderick Daniels' first down run. Night for Jennings, and looking for more here. Dances through the pocket, throws across. That's Bailey the catch. First down, SMU outside the Stanford 11. Johnson now crashing through. L.J. Johnson's got the touchdown run. And SMU on the board here in the 4th quarter, Tom. Wire to wire tonight go the Mustangs to get to 6-1.
Look quick, Doug. You know, how to fly over here all the way to Cali just to get a dub.
We got a lot to play for, all right? We're only through 7 games. But through 7 games, your first year in the ACC, you're bowl eligible.
And that is quite a feat the first year in the ACC to get bowl eligible and to do it in just 7 games, as the Mustangs have done 6-1 now on the year after that 40-10 win over Stanford. Let's move on now to our Rhett to the Point segment. These are clips with SMU head coach Rhett Lashley from his weekly show, the Pony Express Show, that you can see Wednesday nights here on the SMU Mustangs Facebook page, or join us at Ozona Grill and Bar at 7 o'clock on Wednesdays. We mentioned it a moment ago. They did drop a spot in the poll despite winning by 30 on the road, and Rhett Lashley says, who cares?
You know, it's an honor to be ranked in both the AP and the coaches poll. I don't mean they don't matter in that regard, but when it comes to in 2 weeks, whatever number they put by your team, if you're fortunate to have one, will be reflective of the college football playoff poll. So we just got to keep playing week to week, and all that stuff will take care of itself. But it is good for our kids to be acknowledged for their success.
And they are 22nd in each poll coming into tonight's game here at Duke. Last week, a lot of it was about the SMU defense. Rhett Lashley says they were just outstanding to limit Stanford to 206 total yards.
Yeah, I think it probably was our best all-around performance on the year. I mean, we probably would have shut them out had we not fumbled a punt and thrown an interception at the 10-yard line. So just incredible job. They averaged 0.9 yards a carry rushing.
Yeah.
So anytime someone averages less than a yard rushing, and we had 6 sacks and double-digit tackles for loss, to your point, 2 turnovers. We scored on defense again with the safety. I just think they played a really good, complete game for 4 quarters, and that was good.
Biggest downer to come out of last week's win, obviously, was the injury to R.J. Maryland, the tight end leading SMU in all receiving categories, receptions, yards, and touchdowns this season. Happened in the fourth quarter of the game, unfortunately, too. And Rhett says it's just terrible all around for the team and for the player.
I totally understand there's a difference in a head injury and a knee injury. Do not get me wrong there. But if you ask any player, any skilled player, they'd rather you hit them high than low any day of the week, because, it's just – things like that happen, and you can't protect yourself below the waist. And so, I mean, there's a reason they changed the rule on quarterbacks is you can't go at their knees because they're defenseless as they're throwing the football. Well, no more defenseless than RJ was when he got his knees taken out. And so, like I said, it wasn't dirty. Our guys tackle that way. Everybody tackles that way. But I think there need to be something looked at. Otherwise, we're going to continue to have a lot of knee injuries when people go low like that. And here's what I'll say. They've cleaned it up. D linemen don't go low on quarterbacks anymore. They still sack them. Yep. You know what I mean? So I think it's something worth looking at, because I just hate it for RJ. We're going to – obviously it's a hit for us, but I just hate it, like Casey said, for him more than anything. He's worked so hard, was really starting to play really well as we were growing our identity as an offense, and him and Kevin have a great connection, and next man has to step up.
That next man will certainly be Matthew Hibner, who will start at tight end tonight for the SMU Mustangs. Well, there's a lot of reunions going to be going on here tonight because – these staffs know each other so much. Rhett Lashley, of course, worked for Duke head coach Manny Diaz when he was the head coach at the University of Miami. Their offensive coordinator is Johnny Brewer. He'd only worked with Rhett for 11 years at 5 different stops, so obviously there's a ton that these guys know about each other.
There's not a coach I respect more in college football than Manny Diaz. He's 100% in it for the right reasons. Not only is he a brilliant coach, he's a great leader of his staff and of his players. He cares about his players. He has relationships. Much like we try to do here. I think he's a great culture builder. I think he builds winning teams. I mean, look, he's 6-1 at Duke in his first year. Mm-hmm. And you can tell by the way they play how much they believe in him and that staff. So I don't like playing friends like that, but don't worry. Both of us will want to beat each other really badly on Saturday night. He would tell you that too. But to your point, Jonathan Packey, David Feely, the strength coach, was our strength coach at Miami. Those guys are awesome. Other guys on that side of the ball. And then, Johnny – and even Gator, who was with us here as an analyst, is with Johnny there, and a guy I've known a long time, Cam Clark. So, really proud of Johnny. Like I said, we coached together for about 11 years. Yep. And we've been through a lot of really big wins and seasons and such together. So really excited for him to get the opportunity and for them to be successful like they are.
That is Rhett to the Point, SMU head coach Rhett Lashley from his weekly show, the Pony Express Show. The Pony Up Pregame Show is brought to you by Origin Bank. Origin Bank knows what strong teams can accomplish by working together. Origin's trusted advisors help you keep your financial goals within reach. Get the right people on your team today at origin.bank, member FDIC. View from the sideline now is our next segment, and is with the third member of our radio crew, as Steve Lansdale is with me here in the booth as well. That's not Steve. That's Steve right there.
Hello.
As I try to find the right camera that you were on here tonight. Steve will be, of course, down on the sideline on our radio broadcast tonight on 570 KLIF. Both these teams, we talked about R.J. Maryland. The Mustangs have lost him. SMU, I think, got two tight ends, or rather, Duke's got two tight ends that they have lost coming into this week.
Exactly. Obviously, SMU Pony fans have been talking all week about R.J. Maryland because, like you said, he leads the Mustang passing game in everything, or the receiving game in everything. Duke is down its two best tight ends, Nicky DeMolin and Jeremiah Hasley, who haven't caught a lot of passes. I think it's 14 between the two of them, but don't misinterpret that as the idea that they're irrelevant to the passing game, because they have 4 touchdowns between the two of them, but they're also significant parts of the running game.
Yeah.
And that is significant. First of all, Star Thomas, the Duke running back, is a stud. But secondly, Duke quarterback Malik Murphy, big, strong guy. He can run, but he never does. So if the Duke offensive line can just line up one-on-one against the SMU defensive front and open some running lanes for Star Thomas, then fine, tip your hat to him. But if not, they're going to have to bring their third and fourth and fifth tight ends in to help with protection, and that can change up a lot of the scheme. Johnny Brewer was a quarterback's coach at SMU. Like you said, he's been coaching with Coach Lashley for years and years. They use tight ends in very similar ways. And so while SMU fans certainly regret the loss of R.J. Maryland and want to see a full recovery for him, Duke is missing too. So the depth at the tight end position for each team may go a long way toward determining the outcome of tonight's game.
And, yeah, for SMU, we know Matthew Hibner is going to be the starter. And then what's kind of uncertain behind him, Adam Moore has been battling injury much of the season. Stone Eby plays more as an H-back, but I think we'll see him more in the tight end spot.
He may take on a larger role, exactly.
Maybe he can get another catch. He's 1 for 1 so far in his career with a touchdown at Oklahoma.
That's right.
Let's throw it to him again. His average is really good.
At that rate, throw him every play.
Sure, sounds like a great plan. We heard there from Rhett just a moment ago, these coaches know each other. Rhett was hired by Manny Diaz. Johnny Brewer, the offensive coordinator, worked with Rhett for 11 years. Their defensive coordinator, Jonathan Patke, was a guy on the Miami staff, too. So there's not a lot of secrets here.
Exactly. And it's one thing for, like the clip you just played from Coach Lashley, it's one thing to say complimentary things about your buddy who happens to be on the opposite sideline. And there's no doubt that Coach Lashley and Coach Diaz and Coach Brewer are all very fond of each other. But remember, when Coach Diaz was the head coach at Miami, he was in those meetings with Rhett Lashley, with Johnny Brewer. He knows exactly what Rhett Lashley likes to do offensively, just like Rhett Lashley knows exactly what Manny Diaz likes to do defensively. So when you have matchups like this between coaches who are friends, who have worked together, there's 2 ways to handle it. One, you sort of pat each other on the back and say, they know what we're going to do, we know what they're going to do, and it all comes down to player execution. And to a large part, that's true. But then you also have some coaches who try to outthink the opposition and the opponents assume I will do this and this and this and try to work in some new wrinkles. If it works, you look like a genius. If it doesn't work, then you've really outthought yourself as much as you've outthought your opponents. So how the coaches on both sides manage their relationships and their familiarity with each other could be a significant part of the outcome as well tonight.
All right. He's Steve Lansdale, viewed from the sideline. We'll have you down on the sideline on the radio broadcast tonight. Steve will be back with us here in a moment, too, when we pick some games here on the Pony Up pregame show. It's SMU and Duke here tonight. It is time to meet the enemy. Third all-time meeting between these two schools. First one since 1956. However, it's been a little while since these two teams met. Scott back with me here. Both these teams are trying to keep pace in the ACC race. Duke is 2-1. They can't afford another loss and really legitimately think they can get to the conference championship game because there's already 4 undefeated teams ahead of them, like SMU.
No doubt, in this race right now, you and I have talked about how tight it is at the top, and I don't know that anybody expected that. Obviously, Florida State throwing a monkey wrench into the way that the standings sort of play out, but you look back at last year's ACC standings, only 5 teams finished with a plus 500 mark, and it's interesting that you look out throughout the course of recent history, the last 2 or 3 decades, and Duke, that they just have not flourished from a football standpoint standpoint, but they have the last few years, and that's why Elko, he had the 2 seasons here, and all of a sudden, he does a great job in his first year, then backs it up, and now he's at A&M. It doesn't take long these days in college football.
And of course, with Manny Diaz, he specializes.
And that's what he does
on the defensive side. Absolutely, they are very good against the pass. They only give up 154 yards passing a game. They have 24 sacks. They've recovered 7 fumbles. They've picked off 6 passes. This sounds like a familiar formula to what you do on defense to lead to a lot of success.
Yeah.
Sounds like one we're seeing too every week.
It's incredible. We talked about how second level is so important for both of these two teams, particularly for Duke. FSU running a bunch of screens early, but you look at, I think their best linebacker might be a guy that doesn't start every game, and that's Nicholas, number 45, Ozzie Nicholas there right in the middle. He's been pretty impressive, especially lately. 43 tackles, only a tackle and a half for a loss. But, he can get it done. This is a guy that against Florida State, very impressed. He got a forced fumble, then came right back and got an interception in that second quarter against zone coverage. He knows what to do. He knows where to be. He's very physical at the point of attack. We're talking about number 45, Nicholas, who plays a lot of their Mike linebacker spot, but he's very good one-on-one. And that's the one thing that you'll notice from backer to backer and really the back end of their defense. They all can tackle one-on-one. Such a great trait to have. But against Florida State, sort of ran the ball down and made a great open field tackle. You look at their linebackers and Kendi Charles, that tackle. If you'll recall, we've talked last year about how fast SMU's D tackles were. Kendi Charles, he ran a ball down 40 yards downfield last week. He's been very impressive.
Offensively, Malik Murphy transferred in from Texas at quarterback. Yep. He will not run. I think he has a total of 9 rushing attempts. That counts sacks, which they haven't given up many. But he's thrown for 1,501 yards, 14 touchdowns, and he's got 3 really good targets. Jordan Moore, 31 catches. Eli Pancoil, 25 catches. And Samir Higgins has caught 20 balls. So he has a lot of options to throw it to.
He does, but he's got the biggest arm that we will have faced so far this year. 4-star guy out of 2022's class, enrolled at Texas. Last year at Texas kind of sat between Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, 8-1 in his career. Too, elite arm strength. This is a guy that will get the ball out quickly. That's the first thing you notice when you watch tape, how quickly he gets the ball out. The one thing, too, he's got confidence like I have not seen from most quarterbacks anywhere. This guy's not afraid to gamble. He'll throw it back across the field. He knows he's good, and sometimes opposing teams can kind of exploit that from him. But he'll throw it into tight windows deep, too. So he can stand flat-footed. We saw that against Florida State. They got a big rush. He doesn't even have to step into his throw, and he's got a big-time arm. But threw into the blitz, I thought, very intelligently a couple of times last week. He knows what he's doing. I was shocked that he only threw for 70 yards, though.
Well, because remember, they had all those turnovers and had short field. They scored 17 points off 3 turnovers in plus territory, so they didn't have to do a whole lot of it.
And he doesn't have a 300-yard game this year, and he's usually about 200, 210, something like that.
Yeah. And in the backfield, their main guy that they thought they had coming into the season, Jaquez Green, got hurt in week 2. Star Thomas transferred in for New Mexico State. He's run for 616 yards and 4 touchdowns. Have been real blessing for them.
Thomas not super fast, but he can get to full speed quickly. Only takes 2 or 3 steps. He can accelerate really quickly. Tentative sometimes on inside runs because you talked about how Taylor is their tight end. Now, they've lost a couple. He's going to be their starting tight end tonight. Taylor's not really aggressive at the point of attack and sometimes doesn't get upfield quick enough, and he kind of clogs things up for the running backs. So I think that's going to work to SMU's advantage. But you've got to form up number 17, Thomas. He made a ton of cuts in the backfield, too, because they just didn't do a real good job run blocking. But they'll run him, and he'll take a wildcat snap every now and then. So he's pretty versatile.
Give you my stat of the week here this week, Scott.
All right.
It is 12.
Okay.
That is the current conference win streak for SMU right now. 12 consecutive conference games. Breaks the old school record that probably not surprisingly was set 1981 to 82. This streak started November 26th of 2022 with a win over Memphis at the end of that season. They went 8-0 last year and won the conference. 3-0 this year. In this 12-game win streak, they are outscoring conference opponents, mind you, 43 to 18 points on average. And, okay, some will say, that was a lot of American games. Okay. In the ACC this year, they're outscoring 38, almost 39 to 18 per game in their 3 conference games. And the thing that's important, you got to remember, these aren't the games you pick and choose, like an early season win you might throw on your schedule there. These are the ones they say, you play this team here and there, and it doesn't matter. They just go out and win these games so far.
And it also helps, too, when you've got a defense that leads the nation in scoring touchdowns. I think we've got 4 touchdowns as a defensive unit. But yet still, I think when, Rhett Lashley made the switch to Kevin Jennings, I think all of us were like, how's that going to work out? Are we going to be able to score the points that we're accustomed to scoring? That has not been a problem.
Not at all. Not at all. And they keep winning these conference games. Again, 12 straight. 8 straight road wins, too.
Yes.
Look to add to both of those here. Tonight, when SMU plays Duke, it'll be a 7 o'clock kickoff here from Wallace Wade Field. 570 KLIF for our radio broadcast tonight. Also, the SMU app and Sirius XM channel 194, as I double-check that. Let's get to our Pick'em feature here, brought to you by our sponsor, Origin Bank. Well, the standings are getting tight, fellas.
We like that.
As I went 2-3 last week, Scott went 3-2, Steve 4-1 last week. Scott and I are tied at 22-13 on the year.
Don't tell me Steve's taking the lead.
21-14. He's one game behind us.
Good.
He was pretty far behind, so he had to do some work. And
wow.
Hey, you've done some work. You've caught up. Let's get to our 5 games we picked this week. You have to. 5 games we picked this week. First up at 6 o'clock tonight, Florida State is playing at Miami. FSU 1-6. They're 1-5 in conference play. Miami, of course, 7-0, 3-0 in the league. And I was telling you guys on the way over, I only put this on there so we could dunk on FSU again here. How about this for you, okay? In all NCAA classifications this year, FBS, FCS, Division II, Division III, there's 661 teams, okay? First off, that blew my mind. There's that many. Only 25 out of those 661 teams have failed to score more than 21 points in a game this year.
And Florida State's one of them.
They're one of them. They're the only FBS team that has not scored more than 21 points in a game. And, by the way, they haven't scored more than 16 in their last 8 games played in the States. They scored 21 in Ireland, remember, in their season opener this year.
And that's what's been kind of shocking for me, because I think Florida State the last couple of weeks has improved defensively. It's hard to get a defense to do that when they know they can't score.
Yeah, they cannot score at all. They've really struggled offensively. So armed with all that, who you got there, Steve?
How do you follow that? Remember those years when this game was between 2 of the national heavyweights every year, Florida State and Miami, and it seemingly came down every year to a field goal at the end.
Wide right,
yes. Florida State became known as Wide Right University. Miami right now has the number 1 offense in America, averaging almost 42 points a game and 577 yards per game. This is not going to come down to a field goal in the last minute. Miami wins and maybe blows them out.
Scott? Yeah, and Cam Ward's worst day is better than Florida State's best day, it seems.
Yes.
They've got so many problems with that quarter. It seems like got everything in place but the quarterback, and generally that's not the case for teams, but certainly is for them. But these are 2 teams going in opposite directions. I don't know how you don't take the U in this one.
No, Cam Ward's going to add to his Heisman campaign, I think, pretty handily here tonight. I'll take Miami as well. 6 o'clock tonight also out of the Big 12. Utah is at Houston. Utah preseason pick to win the Big 12. They're 4-3, and they're 1-3 in the conference. Houston only 2-5. Utes were as high as number 11 in the nation early in the year. Now they're trying to avoid their first 4-game losing streak since 2017. Steve?
They're trying to avoid that losing streak, and they're also coming off of a loss to TCU in which they scored 7?
I think, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Houston also isn't having a great time. They're coming off of getting pretty much undressed by Kansas last week, so they're both looking for a rebound game.
Yeah.
Houston, with all due respect to Scott's favorite coach in the history of sports, Houston is further behind in the rebuilding process. It may be a very ugly game between these two, but Utah will have enough to get the win.
Scott?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Their freshman quarterback looks every bit of a freshman. And this Utah team, they have really fallen off. I'm a little bit surprised. I know they lost their quarterback, but yet still, last week they give up 4 sacks, 8 tackles for a loss. Just analytically, too, in 5 of their 7 games, they have really underachieved, and that's a little bit surprising. So I think I'm going to go with Houston in this one.
What a surprise.
Utah is, despite all their failures of late, they're still 12th in the nation in points allowed. They give up only 16.4 per game. I'll take the Utes on the road tonight. 6:30 tonight, big one in the SEC. 8th-ranked LSU is at number 14, Texas A&M. Tigers 6-1, 3-0. The Aggies 6-1, 4-0. Can you believe, Steve, these are the last 2 undefeated teams left in the SEC right now?
I can, because I know it's true, but it certainly seems weird. Yeah, they both are undefeated in the conference. A&M has been winning, but winning ugly at times, kind of inconsistent. And make fun of Brian Kelly all you want. People have done that ever since he broke out that sort of pseudo-Louisiana accent when he was first originally hired. But as much as you may want to make fun of him, tell me another coach who could lose Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, and Brian Thomas to the NFL and still have an offense averaging 34 points and 460 yards. It's in College Station where goofy things happen, usually in A&M's favor, but I got LSU with a win.
All right.
And a lot of that, too, not just the accent, but the big game losses, that has a lot to do with it, too. And they've had a tendency to succumb to that. But I think Nussmeier's been excellent so far this season. 5th in the nation in passing success rate this year. The A&M defense, they're very stingy against the run, but they are vulnerable to the pass. And I think this is a game where the Tigers could go on the road, even in College Station, and exploit A&M. Hard to do that. I generally will not go with LSU in these tight, big games like this, but tonight I'm going with the Tigers.
The Aggies can keep it out of LSU's hands, however. They're 13th in the nation running the football, 219 yards per game. I'm going to take Texas A&M at home in this one tonight. 6:30 also, big rivalry game, Michigan State at Michigan. But they're both 4-3, and they're both 2-2 in the Big Ten, and the national champions. They probably need to win tonight to give themselves a real shot to make a bowl game, if you can believe that, because they still have to play number 1 Oregon, number 4 Ohio State, and number 13 Indiana on their schedule still to come. This is a big one for the Wolverines here tonight.
It is, and it's sort of a civil war within the state. Michigan State is one of the great rivalries in the country, and this is a fantastic game if it were played 6 or 8 years ago. It will not be a very sexy game tonight. It will not be pretty to watch. Michigan, being at home in front of 106,000, will do enough to get the victory.
Scott?
Michigan State secondary, they've given up a bunch of touchdowns, 10 touchdown passes that have really rendered big results against them. Michigan State allowed Wisconsin to convert 11 of 18 third downs. Very hard to win games like that. Michigan has not been a home underdog maybe 5 times in the last 30 years, something of this nature. I don't know. I can't see myself going against the Wolverines. I'm going Michigan.
Michigan has lost as many games this year as they had the previous 3. 3.
Wow.
3 games they've lost this year.
And the season's half over.
And they're not going to lose number 4 tonight. I'll take Michigan in this one. And finally tonight at 9:15, Cincinnati is at Colorado. Both 5-2, both 3-1, both trying to get bowl eligible here tonight in the second year for each of their coaches. Of course, one of the coaches gets a bit more headlines with Deion Sanders trying to get Colorado to bowl eligibility. And, hey, both these teams are only a game behind BYU and Iowa State for the top spot of the Big 12.
They'll make it a game and a half.
Almost, yeah, soon.
Cincinnati has the number 25 passing offense in the country, which is really good. Colorado has the number 7 passing offense in the country, which is even better. Colorado was overrated last year, probably underrated this year, and it goes against my DNA to say this, but I think Colorado wins.
Scott?
Yeah, the Cincinnati, they've won 2 straight. They're playing a little bit better football. They can throw the ball. They're 25th in the nation throwing the football, 271 yards a game. But Shedeur Sanders, he's 50 yards better than that on average at around 330. Hard to go against Colorado at home. You're right about that, Steve.
I'm sorry, what?
Hard to go against Colorado at home. Going to go with the Buffaloes tonight.
Travis Hunter played sparingly last week against Arizona because of a sore shoulder, and he still is 50 receptions, leading the team in receiving. He's much healthier this week, I see. I will take Colorado in that one as well. There's our Pick'em Challenge this week. It's brought to you by Origin Bank. They know what strong teams can accomplish by working together. Origin's trusted advisors help you keep your financial goals within reach. Get the right people on your team today at origin.bank, member FDIC. It's SMU and Duke, 7 o'clock tonight here in Durham, North Carolina. Scott, give us a couple of keys to success for the Mustangs.
And these keys really are very important this week, particularly when you don't have R.J. Maryland. Big blow to the Mustang offense, and I agree with Red. I think they've got to look at that, and guys going straight at the knee with helmets. That's got to be something that they look at. But key number one for the Mustangs: no turnovers. Cannot turn the ball over tonight on the road. Both teams turn the opponent over at a very high level. SMU third in the nation in turnovers forced with 17 of those so far this year. They're +7 of the Mustangs in turnover margin. Duke is +6 in turnover margin. Duke has forced 13 total turnovers. So in no other game that we played so far this year has turnover margin been so important, especially on the road. 2 6-1 teams with Pitt lurking next week, coming off of a big win against Syracuse earlier this week. So the Mustangs have got to take care of the football. Key number 2, keep Duke quarterback Malik Murphy out of rhythm. He's got the best arm of any quarterback we will have faced, elite confidence. Again, that sometimes leads to him gambling. He does take some risks. Let's see if the Mustang secondary can take care of that. But Murphy has only thrown 5 interceptions this year against 14 touchdowns. Let's get him out of rhythm. And number 1, you've got to be on point in press coverage. The cornerbacks are going to be playing some press coverage tonight. Lots of quick passes. We've talked about that. They really come out, and they'll do that. Everybody knows they're going to do that. But the wide receivers, they can do it. We'll see if the Mustangs can remain disciplined, can't get burned cheating on those, and you have to be able to cover these guys without interfering in that press coverage. So those are the 3 keys: no turnovers, get the quarterback Murphy out of rhythm, and be on point in press coverage tonight.
And so let me see if I got this right. We had key number 1, we had key number 2, and then we had key number 1.
Oh, did I say key number 1? Yeah, they're all 1. Hey, these are it's hard to put them in. It's hard to get an order with these things.
Steve and I had our eyes circling in opposite directions. We just said that.
You're just like my students during the week, actually.
All right, that's going to do it here for the Pony Up pregame show this week. Our next one will be next Saturday at home over at the Armstrong Fieldhouse. Come by and see us there. What time? We don't know. Hopefully we'll find out tomorrow what time SMU and Pitt will kick off next week. Tonight, we do know it's a 7 o'clock kickoff Central Time for SMU and Duke. 6:30, our pregame on the radio side. We are on 570 KLIF, 570 AM KLIF. You can still hear us on the SMU app. You can also hear us on Sirius XM Channel 194.
And by the way, Rich, I bet we win tonight and not drop in the polls this week. What do you say, speaking of tomorrow?
That's a different way to go about it, for sure. Maybe they could do that this week. All right, that's Scott Garner, Steve Lansdale. Right back there, that guy, that's Kern. Say hi to him. Thanks to Kern. Keeping us on the air here. Thanks, everybody, joining us here. And let's get ready for SMU and Duke at 7 o'clock, and let's all pony up.